Hi everyone, this is Mindy Eggen for Scrapbook and Cards Today magazine, and today I have two cards that I want to share with you using the Let's Stamp Together kit for March 2022 from Photoplay Paper. So here is my first look at the kit, which has the stamp set, die set, and also the coordinating stencil. And I'm going to just kind of start out by taking a really good look at it, see what I have for coordinating dies and stencils, and right away noticing, of course, that this is a super adorable set. I love these cupcakes. So there is a stencil that is going to color the frosting of the cupcake. I also noticed that I have a stencil for the wrapper, a stencil for the sprinkles. So I immediately wanted to make this cupcake because I love ink blending and stencils. And I'm also noticing that there are some additional sprinkles that I will be using later on to turn into a background. I'm going to start my project by stamping out some of these cupcakes. These have the circle sprinkles on the top. I have a piece of layering weight cardstock from Gina K Designs, and I'm going to stamp these cupcakes on these small pieces of cardstock using the Gina K Designs Obsidian ink. I am going to stamp it a couple times because it is a brand new stamp. I haven't used it yet, so I want to make sure I have a really nice impression. Now, I immediately knew I wanted to have a few cupcakes on my card, so I am going to stamp this on 3 different pieces of cardstock. Now, I know that the Obsidian ink can take a while to dry, especially since I stamped it a few times, so I'm going to speed up that drying process with my Wow embossing tool. This is just the low setting on it, and just going back and forth to help make sure that that is dry. If the ink is not completely dry, it is going to smear when I start ink blending. I'm going to place my cardstock with the cupcake and start with the wrapper of the cupcake. I like to do this on my Make Art station. It is a magnetic plate that has these magnets with it, and I love it because it can hold my stencil down without me having to worry about any taping. So I'm starting with the wrapper and some sea glass ink and a blending brush. I'm not going to mask off any areas because I knew I was going to die cut this image out. Now, this particular one was not completely dry, so I am smearing the ink just a little bit, but I'm going to kind of disguise that by adding some shading to my cupcake wrapper. And to do that, I'm taking a darker color of ink. This is the Tranquil Teal, and I'm going to bring in these mini blending brushes from Gina K Designs. I have found these to be very helpful, especially for my balloons later on in the video. So I'm adding the Tranquil Teal just right under the frosting of my cupcake. So that kind of helped disguise that my ink wasn't quite dry just yet. I'm going to repeat these same steps for my other 2 stamped out cupcakes that I have, starting by ink blending that sea glass ink with my larger blending brush, and then bringing in that shadow area with my mini blending tool. You can use any size or any ink blending tool that you have, but I do find that these mini ones are very helpful. So I wiped off my stencil so I don't transfer any ink, and now I lined up these sprinkles on the cupcake. I'm going to keep the frosting white because personally that's my favorite is white frosting, and I'm going to do a rainbow of sprinkles across this front. Now this can be a little tricky because they're very small areas, so I only have 3 colors here. I have Passionate Pink, Wild Dandelion, and Turquoise Sea. I started with the Passionate Pink on one side. I'm going to bring in the Wild Dandelion, and as these colors overlap, I'm going to create kind of that missing color in my rainbow. So the Passionate Pink and Wild Dandelion will have that kind of orange in between, and then I added some of that Turquoise Sea, and that's going to mix with the yellow and give me a green, and then I can finish it off with my Wild Lilac. I noticed I missed a couple sprinkles down at the bottom, so I'm just going to come back in with that Turquoise Sea and fill that in. And then to do the rest of my cupcakes, I want to clean my stencil. I don't want to transfer ink anywhere. And to do that, I just lay my stencil over my station and wipe it away. If it's a little tough, you can use a little bit of water to clean that up. So once again, I'm going to bring in another cupcake, lay my stencil over the top, hold that down with my magnets, and this time I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to start with pink on the right hand side and work my way in the other direction just to give it a little bit of variety. So working my way through the rainbow, making sure to get that overlap so I get those missing colors. And this is another time when these mini blending brushes come in super handy because I can get into those small areas. If I was using a larger blending brush, it would really overtake the entire area of the sprinkles. And then for my last cupcake, I'm actually only going to use the Passionate Pink and Wild Dandelion. I was just trying to change up my sprinkles a little bit. So this one will have kind of three colors. It'll have the pink, the orange, and the yellow once they overlap. Now that all of my cupcakes have the colored wrapper and sprinkles, I'm going to line up the coordinating die, hold that in place with a low tack tape or some washi tape, and then I'm going to trim these down. I have a mini die cutting machine. It's the compact cutter from Hero Arts, which I love because I have a very small work area. So I love anything that can kind of fit right off on the side of my desk. So I trim this down to fit onto these smaller plates, and I'm going to run these all through this compact cutter. The compact cutter also has suction cups so it can stick to your surface. I just didn't push down hard enough on mine to have it stick, but it does have suction cups so it should stay in place. And this gives me a perfectly die cut cupcake. So I will repeat that step for all three of my cupcakes to have these perfectly cut cupcakes for the front of my card. Now I had a few different ideas that I wanted to do with the cupcakes, and I'm going to kind of show you my thought process with them. I love 3 because it's an odd number. It's just something satisfying to the eye about having the odd number of images on the front of the card. I started with laying them out kind of diagonally, which is a really great design. I like that one. Maybe popping in a sentiment towards the bottom. But the idea I landed on was arranging my cupcakes so that they were more going across the front of my card and having one popped up more in the front and center using foam squares, and then adding a sentiment underneath. I also really wanted to use this sprinkles background that's included on the stencil, so I'm placing that over a piece of white cardstock, and I'm masking off the areas all around it using some Post-it notes. Post-it notes are a great tool if you want to just kind of, if you're going to be going through a lot of masking, I like to use Post-it notes. So I just place that around my border so I don't get any ink where I don't want it. And then I'm lightly going over this sprinkles background using the Passionate Pink ink and my blending tool. Just really quick, really light. I actually wanted it to kind of fade off. I didn't want it to be perfect. Then I can remove those Post-it notes, peel up my stencil, and then I'm going to line this up. So it's going to be a continuation going across the front of my card. So just kind of looking through the stencil, making sure that those sprinkles don't overlap. I had thought about doing a rainbow of sprinkles, but since I wanted the rainbow sprinkles on my cupcakes to stand out a little more. So that's why I went with the pink. Then after I did the sprinkles for the background, I'm lightly going over that with my blending brush to just kind of make that pink pop a little bit more. Now this cardstock piece was trimmed down to 3.5 by 4 3/4, and I lined up this bold birthday greeting on the front of my card, making sure that the margins are even on each side of the word, and then I'm inking it up with the Obsidian ink. Now it's a brand new stamp once again, so it's going to take a little bit of conditioning, and it also is very bold. The letters are very thick. So I am going to stamp it twice, just making sure that my cardstock is right in the corner of my Misty stamping tool. You can use a block if you prefer to stamp with blocks. I love using the Misty because I can stamp over it again in the exact same place. Then I'm going to bring in one of these smaller sentiments, line that up underneath my birthday greeting, just making sure that it is centered and straight. And I'm going to stamp that in the Obsidian black ink as well. I like to add dimension to my panels before I add them to a card front. So I have some double-sided foam. Now this is foam that has adhesive on both sides. So I trimmed it down just a little bit smaller than my front panel. And I'm adding this to the back of that panel. I just removed that backing sheet, adding it to the back of my panel. And then I can remove that other backing sheet and add this to a card front that I am creating with sea glass cardstock. So now I have this really nice framed border that goes all the way around my card front, and the color also ties into the wrappers of my cupcake. So I'm going to add 2 of the cupcakes with a tape runner, adding them to the background there. And I'm just using the Gina K Designs dot runner. I really love these because until I really push down, it won't adhere perfectly. So if I need to arrange that a little bit, I can. Now, I thought I would leave this on screen that my tape runner ran out while I was working on this, and they are so easy. You just take your refill and just pop it right into that that container. So really easy to refill your tape runners. I'm going to add the second cupcake, trying to make sure that I have even margins on each side of these two cupcakes. Once I'm happy with it, I can push down a little bit harder, and that will permanently adhere the cupcakes to my card front. I added some white foam squares to the one that's going to go in the center, and then using my tweezers, I'm just going to place that right in the center, kind of down just a little bit to make it more of the focal point and center of attention. My finishing touch is going to be adding this crystal lacquer pen from Hero Arts. So this will dry clear, but it has sparkles in it. And what's a cupcake card without sparkles? So I'm just adding little dots of this to my sprinkles. You're going to be able to still see the color, but it's going to be just nice and sparkly and such a fun, happy birthday card. The next card that I'm going to create is focusing on this balloon that is on the stencil. So once again, I have some layering weight cardstock here. This is from Gina K Designs. It is my favorite cardstock when it comes to ink blending, and I have it trimmed to 3.5 by 4 3/4. I put the balloon up in the top corner, and I masked off the rest of the areas with my Post-it notes because I'm going to have this be the front of my card, and I want to protect the rest of my card. I started by ink blending Passionate Pink with my mini blending brush, starting with a light layer of ink and then going around the very outer edges a little bit heavier handed. So another reason why I love these mini blending tools is I can really concentrate where I want the darkest colors to be. So what this is doing is creating a highlight area in the center of the balloon. It is really cool in person. Now I need to clean this before moving on to my next color. So I spritzed on a little bit of rubbing alcohol and I'm wiping that away with a paper towel. This card is a little bit more labor intensive, but I think it is so worth it. So once again, I took my balloon and now this time I kind of put it down just a little bit, but overlapping my previous balloon. I really want to have that overlap. And then I masked off all around it with Post-it notes. So another great reason why, Post-it notes are just super cheap and you can go through them with no problem. I really want to make sure I'm not transferring color. So I do switch out my Post-it notes quite a bit. Now this balloon, I'm going in rainbow order, kind of. I started with Wild Dandelion, and then I went around the very outer edges with Tangerine Twist. I had to bring in that orange because it's kind of hard to darken up edges yellow on yellow. Now I cleaned my stencil. I moved it up a little bit towards the top so it's overhanging. I like when it kind of bleeds off of the cardstock a little bit. And then I'm bringing in, I think it was key lime, and then I believe I have Lucky Clover. You just want a light and a dark color of ink. So each time I am cleaning my balloon in between each different color, and then I'm also alternating, so I'm going up and down with the balloons, making them various heights. This one I blended with Sea Glass ink and Tranquil Teal, removed my Post-its, and now I'm getting this really beautiful transition of a rainbow going across the front of my card. Cleaned that once again, put this balloon up towards the top a little bit in the corner, and I'm doing, I think this was Lovely Lavender and then Wild Lilac. Now back over by the pink and the kind of yellow orange one, I had a little bit of space there that I wanted to fill. So I thought that was a good time to bring in my yellow. And this one, I really didn't need to add a ton of shading to it because there isn't much there. I just wanted to fill that area a little bit. Now that I have this beautiful array of balloons at the top, I'm going to add strings to my balloon. And to do that, I just have a fine point marker or pen. And I'm using, this is actually a Misty ruler because I couldn't find my T-square ruler, and I'm adding the strings to my balloons. In hindsight, I probably wouldn't have gone down as far if I were to do this card again. I wouldn't have the strings going down too far because my sentiment's going to go towards the bottom of the card, and it kind of looked a little funny, but I still made it work. And then also with this yellow one that's kind of peeking up in the top, I drew a line and then I also put a little dot of my black marker or my black pen kind of up at the top there, like right here. And I wish I wouldn't have done that. It just looked really funny. And I'm going to end up covering that up with sequins. That's always a great time to add an embellishment. I'm stamping out that birthday greeting again, once again on white cardstock in my obsidian ink. I really love the script of this and how bold those letters are. And then I'm going to line up that coordinating die, and I'm going to trim this down so that I can run it through my compact cutter. Then while I have my compact cutter on my desk, I'm also going to die cut out this birthday sentiment 3 more times just out of plain white cardstock, not stamped out. What I like to do when I have a word like this die cut, I like to layer them to add dimension. You can add foam squares, but sometimes if they're smaller like this, I just like to die cut out a few pieces of cardstock and layer it together with the Connect glue that I have in the mini bottles. I'm placing my balloon panel in my MISTI tool, holding it down with my magnet, and then I picked out another one of these smaller sentiments, and I made sure it was straight using these MISTI corners. Those are very, very helpful tools to help make sure your sentiments are straight. And then I could pick that up, remove that MISTI corner, and stamp this in the obsidian ink. Once again, I'm going to trim down some double-sided foam adhesive sheets that are just a little bit smaller than my balloon panel. And I can add this to the back to pop this up. And for my card front, I am using, I believe this is Sweet Mango cardstock from Gina K Designs. Since I didn't have a lot of orange in my balloons, I really wanted to pull the orange in to complete my rainbow. I'm going to add my layered greeting right up on top of my Wishes to You sentiment that I stamped out just using my liquid glue, and then I place a couple blocks on top to just hold that down for a moment. Now remember I said I had added that little dot towards the top there for a balloon and I didn't like it. So what I'm doing is I'm covering that up with some embellishments. I just kind of went to town. I really had a lot of fun adding these kind of clear sequins using my liquid glue and then just pushing it down with my jewel picker. One last tip I want to share is that if you feel you didn't get a very good highlight area in the center balloon, you can take a white colored pencil. This is a white Prisma-colored pencil, and I'm just lightly coloring in the center of the balloon, just kind of very softly. I'm using the side of the pencil and just putting that in the center, and this is such a great way to really help pop that highlight out a little bit more. That finishes off my card projects for you today. I hope you enjoyed them and it inspires you to create with the Let's Stamp Together kit. I had a lot of fun creating these cards. I was super excited with the end results and I hope you enjoy them too. Thank you so much.